After a few months of reviews, it's finally time to rank all 17 of the live-action Disney reimaginings. For this list, I will be ranking these movies based on their overall score. If you watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I have a quality score and an enjoyment score, and then I average them out for an overall score. That is what I will be ranking in this video. Just to clarify before we get into the video, the way my percentage ranking works is any movie that's a 65 or higher is a positive score. Anything that's a 64 or lower is a negative score. So, let's get into this ranking. In 17th place with an overall score of 8% is 102 Dalmatians, a very weird movie that is nightmare fuelish and disgusting. Not much of this movie is good on any level, and I can't believe that this movie has a higher Rotten Tomatoes score than a movie like Batman vs. Superman. I'm not going to get into my unpopular opinions of that movie, but it for sure deserves a lot more credit than this pile of trash we know as 102 Dalmatians. In 16th place is Maleficent Mistress of Evil with an overall score of 40%. I really wanted to like this movie, but it's just not that good, and I didn't like the characters. I couldn't get on any character's side, which really affected the story for me, as well as almost every aspect of this movie. In 15th place is Peach Dragon 2016 with a score of 43%. This is a movie where for the majority of the film, our characters don't have any goals or ambitions. They're simply doing stuff, and it's not necessarily interesting stuff either. So this movie is overall just a pretty boring, bland movie that doesn't intrigue you and doesn't really entertain you until the third act. In 14th place with an overall score of 50% is Aladdin 2019, a movie that tried and had some good intentions, but overall just falls flat due to an overuse of poor exposition and cringy dialogue. In 13th place is Alice Through the Looking Glass with an overall score of 53%. This movie isn't terrible, and I actually kind of enjoyed most of it. But what really lacks in this movie is the fact that there's no real stakes, because anytime our characters are in some sort of trouble, the trouble is resolved in such a simple, easy way where our characters don't have to do anything, that it makes it a little bit less entertaining and intriguing. In 12th place with an overall score of 54% is The Jungle Book 1994. This movie actually has some pretty good production value, the acting was solid, but this movie doesn't know what it wants to be. It's constantly shifting its tone and its story, and that leaves for a pretty confusing film that isn't quite enjoyable. And this film just doesn't feel like a Disney movie. It's not fun, it doesn't have the heart or anything. It's just an action-adventure movie that doesn't know what it wants to be. In 11th place with an overall score of 57% is The Lion King 2019. There's not much to say about this movie, because it's pretty much just the same movie as the animated film. The only difference is this movie was made to look like live action, and this movie has no identity of its own. With an overall score of 60%, 101 Dalmatians 1996 doesn't quite reach the high enough score to be considered a good movie, but it does just break into our top 10. This movie had a lot of potential to be a serious yet entertaining film about animal abuse, but it decides to go the more childish route, completely abandoning the story that it sets up in the beginning of the film, and just cheapens the whole movie overall. It is entertaining, but it has so much missed potential that it lessens the quality. In 9th place with an overall score of 74% is Dumbo 2019. It's a Tim Burton movie. What can I say? It looks great, it's entertaining and fun, and the cast is great, especially Danny DeVito and Michael Keaton. In 8th place is Milan 2020 with an overall score of 75%. This movie has a lot of good stuff in it. It has some pretty good action sequences, even if they're not amazing. The story is like the original, but it does find some new ways to tell it. But what really keeps this movie down, holds it back from being really good, and just makes it an okay movie, is the fact that this movie doesn't know how to handle its female empowerment messages, and it makes Mulan more of an invincible warrior than a relatable character. In 7th place, with an overall score of 77%, is The Lady and the Tramp 2019. This was just a very fun, delightful film, a solid retelling of the animated story. It doesn't stray too much from its source material, but it is different enough to make it feel a little bit fresh. In 6th place is Christopher Robin, with an overall score of 80%. This film was very well made. It's pretty fun and enjoyable. I like the characters a lot. Pooh Bear is just a big part of my childhood, and so that did leave a soft spot in my heart for this movie. But it's overall a pretty enjoyable, well-made movie, even if it is a little bit generic. Rounding out the top 5 is Alice in Wonderland 2010 with an 82%. This was just a really cool, fun, fantasy epic, taking the story of Alice in Wonderland and making it into this grand, epic adventure, while somewhat being a sequel to the animated film, while still being a retelling of Alice in Wonderland in its own right. Tim Burton really gave a creative new take on this story, and it really paid off. In 4th place is Cinderella 2015 with an overall score of 85%. This movie doesn't do anything extremely different, but it is a dazzling, fun movie. It's just feel-good entertainment, and that really ranks it up higher on the list. Making it to the bottom of our top 3 is The Jungle Book 2016 with a score of 87%. This movie is probably the most well-made and one of the most creative reimaginings out of all of them, but it's not quite my favorite, so that does keep it down a bit. But I really like what they did and how they reinvented this story to where it's pretty much a completely new movie from the original animated film. Also, this movie is pretty epic. Our runner-up to the number 1 spot is Maleficent 2014 with an overall score of 89%. I really love the way that they reinvented the story of Sleeping Beauty, turning the animated film's villain into the hero of this story, a hero and a villain at the same time, a villain that we can root for because we want to see her become good again, and we see that transformation throughout the movie, which just is extremely entertaining. It really connects you to the story and the characters, while also doing a lot of other great stuff. This is a very strong fantasy film, which makes it very fun for me. It's honestly my favorite out of these live-action Disney reimaginings. While it's not the best, that does hold it back a little bit from being in the number 1 spot. In the number 1 spot is Beauty and the Beast 2017, with an overall score of 89%. This movie is just beautiful. It's tonally consistent from start to finish. The characters were extremely well cast. The songs are almost as good, sometimes as good, and even sometimes better than the animated films. And there's a lot of new songs, most of which are pretty great. This movie is just a very well-crafted work of art that does what needs to be done to transfer this movie and this story from animation to live action, and it takes the number 1 spot for good reason. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you like this video, please check out more. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what your thoughts on these Disney reimaginings are, and I'll see you all on the next one.